How's it going, guys? It's your boy, Lieutenant Dan, here with another unintentional grounding live from Orlando, Florida. I hope all of you guys are having a wonderful week. I hope all of you guys are trying to de-stress from this this Falcons stuff, this thing. So, yeah, we got some things to talk about. I think we have some things to talk about. I need to very quickly. I need to pull something up. I thought I had everything set up. I always think I have everything set up, and it's never always set up. It's kind of worries me sometimes when I try to put this stuff together. But that being said, rise up, stay ground. I hope you guys are doing well. It's been a hell of a week trying to get just some content up in here. Because I've had to go to a wedding, because when we got back, we were exhausted and we weren't doing well, and we took a couple of days for ourselves and whatnot, and of course the Falcons haven't been really helping the issue here. And neither have the Braves either, so we'll try not to get too into that. Interesting little development. I put up a poll for you guys on Twitter, and I said, do you guys want to see a Matt Ryan interceptions breakdown? Do you guys want to see a mock draft? Do you guys want to see how about them Braves? Do you guys want to see some video gaming live stream? And the top two answers were mock draft 1.0 and Matt Ryan interceptions. So we're going to talk a little bit about a mock draft, or potentially doing a mock draft for you guys today, and then of course kind of putting some things together as well. As a whole, where is this thing at? I wanna make sure that I get this right. Twitch 34 Psy thinking. Yeah. All right. Cool. Whatever. We'll just wing it. we'll wing it. So put this into your cranium for just a second, because this is great. We have such a large group now at this point that other Falcons YouTubers or other Falcons fans are now tuning in and subscribing or unsubscribing to the channel and going off to other Falcons YouTubers and bitching and moaning and complaining on those channels about us. And so I think it's the neighbors or whatever. Shout out to them. They do some content. They do some kind of content. I don't know what kind of content they do, but they do some content. But one of their callers called into their, I guess you call it a radio show for YouTube, and put us on blast and said that apparently the unintentional grounding and Mad Mike Sports and all these guys, they're just out here saying shit to try to rile up fans and whatnot, and that's never what this channel has been built on. And no amount of comments or callers on other channels or negative Falcons fans are going to burn this channel down. There's nothing they can do to make me stop doing YouTube. So that being said, props to whoever the caller was, saying that we put the fans on blast, we put the players on blast, and now we put the coaches on blast, and we've been wrong every single time. We've actually been right every single time. This is not patting myself on the back or not having a humbleness, but it did go in that order. The players started getting defensive, we put them on blast. The fans came out and started putting everybody on blast, the coaches and the players, before we had figured it out. And so we put them on blast. And then the coaching staff has finally revealed that they are the ones that are just not putting it together. They're just not putting it together. And so today we come together and we go, hey, this is how we need to look at things. It develops week to week, and that's what the NFL season is all about. I told Mad Mike, weeks ago, I'm not going to wait and see for things to happen, because that's basically saying I'll make explanations, or I'll make a theory at the end of the year. That's not what this channel is about. This channel is not about waiting for things to happen. So, yeah, so the Falcons lost to the Houston Texans. Rise up to all the peeps in the chat, and I hope you're all doing well. Chaz Phillips, Minnesota Falcons fan, Trucker B, Jay Holland, Brian Long, Dougie E. Fresh, excuse me, Steel Wings, 50 Millie, good to see you in the building. Montagus Henderson, and Ricky West, good to see all of you guys. Rise up, stay grounded. I hope you're all doing well. Falcons lose to the Houston Texans. They lost the week before. They lost the week before that. They've beaten the Eagles since then. And I watched this Brett Kollmann video. I really like Brett Kollmann. I wish that we could do a video collab together, or we could have a discussion privately. So if some people would love to go and try to, poke him on Twitter or wherever, that would be awesome. I've tried to ask him before, and I think this channel wasn't big enough at the time. But Brett Kollmann put out a really, really good video. And the video pretty much stated every single flaw the Falcons have right now. Players have regressed. The system is janky. The way that we are running cover 3, cover 1, no responsibility or talking is being utilized. There's no communication on the field. Players that were good are now looking bad. Trufant, 5 touchdowns on him up to this point. So it is a build to something greater. It is a build to something greater right now. And it could get a lot worse. It could get a lot worse. And I like what Brett Kollmann kind of did through his video, showing that there's no communication in these zone reads, and Dan Quinn continues to put on these cover 3 looks and these soft zone coverages, and the players just don't use proper technique or communication to make those work. And we said something very similar early on, that we were like, the zone's got to stop. The zone has to stop, because if we continue to see that zone week in and week out, we're going to continue to see the Falcons continue to lose or get abused in the secondary. It's simple reads for simple quarterbacks. We're making quarterbacks that are not in the top 10 of quarterbacking look like top 10 quarterbacks, without question. So my thought process after looking at film was, is there really anything that I can say myself on this channel alone? Is there anything I can really say on this channel that we haven't already covered in the last couple of weeks? And I think Brett Kollmann pretty much summarized everything that we've been saying for the last couple of weeks. Zone has been bad. Players have regressed. The scheme and communication, bad. And that is going to continue to contribute to losses for this team. Yes, the players, if they take it on their back, and Brett Kollmann said it himself, yes, the players, if they were to take all the responsibility on their back and they were to just play despite the coaching and literally take it on their shoulders and win it on their own, they can do that. They did it in the Eagles game. Very, very obvious look to be like Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and some of the defensive players in that game, they took it upon their own shoulders to win that game. And there was a look from, Cutter that they were looking for, and it worked. But at this point, that communication over weeks, and we've been promised this change. No change has happened. Or, in theory, bad change has happened. You look over, he said something about looked over 1,000 something plays or 3,000 something plays or 10,000 something plays. And it is in its own right a bad setup. You said that you looked over all of these plays, and yet we're seeing the same results that we've seen from 2018 and 2017 and 2016 and 2015. So I'm not going to sit here and rag on the coaching staff or rag on the players or rag on the fans. I had my say of what I thought of toxic fans. I had my say of what I thought of certain individuals that are playing on this team that are still underperforming. And now I'm seeing players that I thought were, these are the guys that can keep this team up, and they're underperforming now. Guys like Trufant, who I'm like, you are an example of someone that needs to be a leader and keep this team going, and it's not working. You're actually regressing with the rest of the team, you know? So here we are looking at here we are looking at a really bad group, you know? We're looking at a really bad group. Whether that is the coaching itself, because it is partly the coaching, or it is the players' regression because they're not using proper technique in their coverage or in their pass rush, is what it is. But if this team wants to continue to push forward and get better, then it's going to have to make some wholesale changes. And here's just a couple of examples of wholesale changes. And I'm already seeing in the chat there's a lot of negativity, so if the mods wouldn't mind kind of cleaning up that negativity, thank you, appreciate it. Because there are a couple mods in the chat right now. But if we were to begin the process now, and I said this a couple weeks ago, so this is weeks late. But if the Falcons were to begin the process now of setting up things currently to gain more pressure, to gain better coverage on this team, then in theory, we could have potential, and this is just potential, wins down the road. Are we going to go to the playoffs? It's very unlikely right now, and I would take those expectations and I would cram them into a tiny little box and I would put them in a drawer somewhere, because that right there, that's not going to get any better. Unless we go on a legendary run over the next 6 or 7 games where we're just winning and winning and winning and winning, and our own division takes steps back. And that's asking for a lot. You know it, I know it. So that's just something that we can't rely on that, you know? But I can say this, that after looking at this roster and looking at the coaches that could potentially be hired by the Atlanta Falcons in 2020, there's a lot of divide between what, you know, just in this chat alone, what Falcons fans want on one side of the aisle and what they want on the other side of the aisle. The Falcons fans want pressure, but they don't want to try anything new. The Falcons fans want an explosive offensive head coach, but they also want Matt Ryan gone. The Falcons fans want a bunch of sacks, but they also want to fire everybody on defense. So there's a very confusing state right now. There's no direct correlation to like this group of guys and then this group of moves, you know? So what I did over the last 2 months, I've been doing this, I guess, kind of since July, maybe even August. Maybe early August, late July. But I've been putting together a plan, a process, because what really hit me, what really clicked to me is that what did I see in 2017 and 2018 that we were building into 2019? I said back in 2017, the 2018 draft is going to show us where the Falcons are going to go as a team. It did. It did show us where we were going to go as a team. We selected several players, Isaiah Oliver, Dejan Sanat, Calvin Ridley, just to name those, that kind of pointed where we wanted to go. All of 2018 became an injury cesspool. So that none of us can control, nor can we really harp on, because when you lose most of your really good players, then all the rest of the players are going to suffer. Like, you know, you just kind of understand. So fast forward to 2019 and look at the draft process that we went through, adding offensive linemen to the team, adding a few role players, adding more corners. Very interesting. And it was a draft that myself and I think plenty of others in this community and Falcons fans around were, why didn't we take Brian Burns? Oh no, Christian Wilkins, no Dexter Lawrence, on and on and on. Ja'Kai Polite, why didn't we? Thank God we didn't get Ja'Kai Polite. But you understand what I'm saying? Defensively, the fan base was all in it with, hey, we want to go defensive. But there was a portion of the fan base that I did open an ear and I did lend my hand out to that was, hey, offensively, we need to get this right. If Matt Ryan's not upright, then Matt Ryan is not going to throw touchdown passes. No matter who the offensive coordinator is, we have to have something around Matt Ryan to be able to work with. This is unfortunate, but Chris Lindstrom got hurt. McGarry has been struggling a little bit, and the rest of the trenches have been playing very peculiar. So we're talking about Jake Matthews not even playing like Jake Matthews, like he's been abducted by aliens. Alex Mack definitely has had some type of regression. And then back and forth between Carpenter, Jamon Brown, Wes Schweitzer, because guys are getting injured over and over. We can't control that. So it's just a bad look. It's just unfortunate. That being said, though, there have been some very strange play calls by Dirk Koetter, and it's due in part to two things. Brazilian X Skills, give him a shout out in the chat, one of the mods here who's done a great job and worked really hard. He's been looking over the film with me week to week so that I'm not overwhelmed by the film that we're looking at. And Skills has pointed out two things. One thing that I was kind of biased with, and the other one is that, it is a good call that he gave me a pat on the back about. Number one, the players are not performing well in this system that Dirk Koetter is putting together. They seem to be having hiccups every single game, On the other hand, though, I've been super, super critical of Dirk Koetter. Dirk is not a bad offensive coordinator, but Dirk is only one half of a coordinator. And even Skills said something to the effect of, I need to stop, Lieutenant Dan, I need to stop trying to harp on Dirk Koetter because he's making a lot of good plays, but he's not adding the run game to the mix effectively. And that's partly due to the offensive line just not playing well. So there's a lot of moving parts that no one wants to get their hands dirty and pick up. But when you really pick them up and you really look at what's going on, it seems to kind of make sense and it correlates and it actually gives you an answer. You have a mathematical equation, you go down the list, what is the answer? You're able to figure out the equation itself, all the moving parts. You get really into this deep equation that you don't want to get into it because it's math, it sucks. And then you get to the end and you understand it and you go, okay, that makes sense. So here is my plan for whether or not Dan Quinn gets fired or not. Okay? So I'm just going to leave this open to interpretation. This is completely open to interpretation, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Anthony Wright says, the season is not over. A lot of you Falcons fans, not all of you, are classless, ignorant, spoiled babies that whine all the time when things don't go the way that you think they should go. Anthony Wright, you are completely correct. No pun intended, but you are right. That is what it is. It is what it is. So, and I put the fans on blast already. I've already put the fans on blast. I got blasted for putting the fans on blast, but it was only the facts and truth. So, that being said, here is my open interpretation mock draft number 1. Okay? And I hope you guys understand that every single part of this plan, is all subject to change. None of this is locked down. None of this is locked down. So please take this with a grain of salt. Let's get straight into it. I just want to spit a few numbers at you guys. Does anyone in here not understand dead cap? Okay? Does anyone not understand dead cap? I would hope that everybody in here understands dead cap. Dead cap, just to very quickly state, is money that is owed to a player that when he is cut or traded is still guaranteed to that player and must be paid to that player. So, for instance, if we were to cut Desmond Trufant or trade Desmond Trufant next year, then we would have $10 million in dead cap next year and a savings of $5 million. So, in retrospect, you don't want to lose just $10 million and not be able to play with it. But you do like the $5 million in savings, but it just doesn't correlate. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't have all of this dead cap and then think everything's going to be fine, because that's literally taking from your current cap and putting it into a savings account that you cannot touch. So, here we go. Like I said, these are just a few players that I feel like we should tap into the pool and ask some questions. Trufant. If we were to cut him next year, $10 million in dead cap. This is all before June 1st. This is $10 million in dead cap in 2020 and a savings of $5 million. But if we were to cut or trade Desmond Trufant post June 1st, so after June 1st, we would actually have a dead cap of $4 million in 2020, $5 million in 2021, and a savings of $10 million in 2020. So flexibility to be able to move around and explore a different opportunity, maybe for the defense somewhere. I know it was unpopular. To give Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford money a few years ago. And there's a lot of people in here that had that opinion. Oh God, we just gave all this money to these two guys. I wasn't a fan of giving them money in hindsight. But at the time, Trufant, I felt, deserved the money because in 2013, 2014, he was playing like a badass. And Alford was also playing very well, although you could see signs of some trouble issues if the system wasn't controlled. So that's the money on Trufant for 2020. Vic Beasley, $12.8 million this year. He's a free agent in 2020. That right there is a hot topic, I think, for a lot of people. You make of it what you wish, if you want to bring him back or not. Alex Mack, if we were to cut him pre-June 1st next year or trade him, that would be $2 million in dead cap and $8 million in savings. And that's actually the same for a post-June 1st cut or trade. So you're talking about $8 million in savings if you were to move Mack before or after June 1st. That kind of goes along with the plan, and just stick with me because you're going to want to hear this. Mohamed Sanu has a dead cap of $1 million and a savings of $6 million next year. And he's a free agent the year after. I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna just say this. With Hooper here and potentially having to pay Hooper because of Matt Ryan having such a connection with Hooper and having such trust in Austin Hooper, he throws the ball, Hooper catches the ball. It doesn't matter how Matt Ryan throws it, Hooper usually catches it. It's a safety blanket for Matt Ryan, and Sanu and Hooper do the exact same thing. So this is just another person, I think, on the roster that I love him being here and I want him to stay. But in the long term, it doesn't make sense to keep him around if the same player archetype is playing that position and doing the exact same thing. So Austin Hooper is doing the exact same thing that Sanu is doing and vice versa. So you kind of need to balance that out. And one is going to have to go and the other one's going to have to stay. Unless you get rid of both and you decide that you're going to go get a new tight end. Devontae Freeman, this is another interesting one. If Devontae Freeman was cut or traded next year before June 1st, it would be $6 million in dead cap and $3 million in cap savings. And nobody wants to be on the negative side of things with money. You don't want to go that, this thing costs, $6, but I'll give you $3. You're in the negative still. What you want is the post June 1st, which post June 1st of 2020, there would be $3 million in dead cap in 2020 and $3 million in dead cap in 2021, and a cap savings of $6 million in 2020. So you are on the you're on the positive here on this particular side. You're on the positive by releasing him after June 1st and gaining that $6 million. So you're kind of only gaining $3 million, but you're not having to pay the full $6 million this year. And then one more that I kind of want to talk about is Alan Bailey, who his 2020 dead cap would be $1.5 million and a savings of $4.5. But he only has 1 year left on his contract and has played very well for Atlanta this year. So I wonder how that kind of correlates with the Falcons' plan going forward, whether Dan Quinn here is here or not. Excuse me. So these were just a couple of guys that I wanted to talk about to kind of just give you an idea of what money we could save immediately. But the dead cap is going to be there no matter what you do. And there are ways to get around it. Like I said, there are ways to get around it. But no matter what you do, you're going to be hit by a large portion of dead cap no matter who you move. So my suggestion would be tread very lightly, whoever the GM is after the season, whether it's Thomas Dimitroff or it's someone new. Tread very lightly because you do not want to put yourself in cap hell for 2 seasons, which would, that would really put the team and set it back. It's already bad, but, we're playing with money. We still have money, but we're playing with little to no money next year, and adding more to that cap, dead cap weight. We're already I think it's $4 million in the negative next year. So we'll have to make moves no matter what we do. But here was my idea going into 2020, whether Dan Quinn is here or not. There's a couple of things that I kind of want to point at. 2018, we started to see more 34 style looks, and we saw the addition of more 34 players to the team. We also saw Grady Jarrett actually play in his most effective spot, which was the 4-eye. I'm not going to get too deep in my predictions of 2018 or really talk about in full what I thought of Grady Jarrett playing in that 4-eye. But here are just a couple of examples of things that could help us going down the road. I watched the New England Patriots last night against the New York Giants. And yes, the New York Giants weren't playing with Saquon Barkley. They didn't have Evan Ingram. They didn't have, most of their wide receiving core. So yes, it was a much tougher ask for the Giants to win last night. But what the New England Patriots have done over this last season is they have moved away from their traditional 43, or really, to be honest, their bigger multiple defense that they've been playing, and have decided to play a 3-4 in their base. And they don't play it often, but they do play it, and it translates to their sub package, which is a nickel 2-4-5 look. I believe that's how you say that, 2-4-5 look. So only 2 defensive linemen, but with 4 linebackers on the field that all average. And let me make sure that I have this average correct, because I have the average right here. Their linebacking average is 253 pounds, and their highest linebacker weight is 260, but their lowest weight is 238. They have exactly what we're playing. It's is it really weird? Is it really odd that suddenly the Patriots decide that they're going to play a full 34 and then they start playing this 2-4-5 look and they're creating pressure and they're getting to the quarterback and it's unstoppable week to week. Week to week, their defense is so beautiful to watch. It really is. Now, I'm not going to gush over the Patriots defense, but it is odd that the correlation between the Patriots suddenly playing 34 full time and only rushing 4 and 5 from a linebacker standpoint, that also correlates to what's happening in college. Currently in the college realm, the spread is king, correct? We see it every day. Spread, RPO, air raid, just as much receivers out as possible to get the defense to spread out so that pockets of the field open up. If you correlate what's happening in college to stop the spread with what's happening in the NFL, where spread and RPO are really getting tapped into and defenses are trying to find a way to stop it, you begin to figure it out. College is now stopped playing 3 techs, or really it's a 5 tech and a 34, but they have stopped playing 5 tech and a 34 and are now playing the 4-eye. And you guys will probably go, 4-eye, I've heard that somewhere before. Yes, they're now playing 2 4-eye defensive ends next to a nose tackle 1 tech. And what's happening at the college level is that guards aren't able to stop these 4-eyes. And what you see what's happening in New England is they're doing the exact same thing, where they're playing in their base defense, they're playing 2 4-eye defensive ends, they're playing a nose tackle, and then when they go to their 2-4-5 looks, they're playing 2 4-eyes or 2 heavy nose tackles, and then playing a bunch of linebackers that come after. So that's a direct correlation. Something happened there in New England. They figured it out. They were looking at college stuff, and they decided to bring those concepts to the NFL, and it's working. It's completely working. So if you want to be ahead of the trend, then you're going to want to start playing more 4-eye. Why does that sound familiar to Falcons fans? Because Grady Jarrett in 2018 moved over to the 4-eye position when he was rushing the passer and was abusing guards. Right guards, left guards, doesn't matter who they were not able to guard. No guarding. And there were tackles for loss, and there were a bunch of sacks. Sack numbers actually went up in Grady Jarrett's favor last year. And then in this year, he has actually made a couple of plays from that same exact position. If you'll notice, by the way, too, that during the offseason, the Falcons selected John Kaminsky, and they also brought in Rashid Hageman and Tyler Davison, a true nose tackle. When you put that true nose tackle in there, because Sonata's not a true nose tackle, and we don't even know what's going on with him currently. He seems like the definition of a player lost to the system. And then you correlate that with all the other guys, Alan Bailey, Grady Jarrett, Rashid Hageman, John Kaminsky, Jack Crawford, who are all very good 4-eye players. Then you start to understand that Dan Quinn, yeah, he did have an idea of what he wanted to do, but he has very bad coverage ideas, and it's not correlating because the pressure's not there because there's no coverage. There's not enough time for those guys to be able to get there because the defensive line is a little bit slower, and he also doesn't have the linebackers to play it, i.e. what New England was able to do last night and over the last couple of weeks, if you watched the game last night, was they sent linebackers that are 250 plus pounds at these guards who are 300 pounds, and they are killing them with stunts, with straight up bull rushes, with spin moves, with rips, with clubbing moves, and they are just mutilating offensive lines by sending very unorthodox blitzes. So, in theory, you can say that Dan Quinn, yes, was building this 34 defense, 2-4-5, but the players he's stuck with currently and the system that he's running currently do not translate to that success. So here we go. I've got all the averages for the height and weight, and I'm not going to really go over that currently, but I'm gonna talk to you about the needs for the Atlanta Falcons to be able to run the New England style of defense and what they're doing in college that directly correlates to New England. Because I think it all ties in together. It's very, very interesting little web of things going on. But New England currently has 3 nose tackles, 5 defensive ends, 3 outside linebackers, 3 middle linebackers, 5 corners, and 5 safeties on the active roster, and they use most of them during the game. Think about that for a second. 3 nose tackles, and they use them all. 5 defensive ends that are playing 4-tech or 4-eye. 3 outside linebackers, 3 middle linebackers. One of them, by the way, is 238 pounds. 5 corners and 5 safeties. So we're going to go over this so that everybody in the chat understands exactly what I'm talking about here. It's wow. It's really wow. You're like, what is this defense? Because you're like 3 nose tackles and they use all of them during the game. And they're creating pressure. What? Yeah. So my 2020 plan, and this is going to continue to evolve every week, okay? It's been evolving for 2 months now. But this is my thought process currently. And I'm only talking about the defense, although the draft will have 2 offensive players that we take. One in the 4th round and one in the 1st round. So, oops, I let that out of the bag. But this has been my idea. I'm letting my draft experiment, my draft hot take out of the bag, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I really do. But here are the players that we're going to lose on defense. We're going to lose Jack Crawford to free agency, Michael Bennett to free agency, Adrian Claiborne to free agency, Steven Means to free agency. Rashid Hageman has already been gone. Devondre Campbell, I would not re-sign him. Here's why. I would not re-sign Devondre Campbell because he does not fit the archetype of that 34 style defense, and it would cost us too much money in the long run to be able to acquire him than it would to just move on and draft a new linebacker that is similar to him or plays what we're looking for. Brady Will Wilson, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm bad with names. Kamel Ishmael, JJ Wilcox, and Sherrod Niesman. All gone. Now, this was also made before the injury to Cyprin. So that is up in the air, but as of right now, I'll get to that point and we'll talk about him. But as of right now, I do not have him getting cut or released. I would also trade DeMonte KZ. First hot take. Dan, what are you doing? I would trade DeMonte KZ for a 4th round pick if we can get that out of that. A lot of people will go, he's worth a 3rd. This is the NFL. It's a business, and you're going to lose. You have to compromise. And I would also trade Deidre Sanat for a 5th or 6th rounder. That right there is going to be kind of my setup for the offseason. That would be my setup for people we lose and people we trade. That right there kind of gives you a little bit of wiggle room, kind of gives you a little bit of money back, and gives you some picks for 2020. So you have an extra 4th and maybe an extra 6th. Okay. So I want the chat, because this is interactive, I want the chat to pick one. Do we allow Jermaine Grace to walk next year? Or do we sign him and trade him? Or do we keep him? Because if you do that, then Foye Oluokun has to either be cut or be traded. That's your hard decision. I'll let you talk about it in the chat. Jermaine Grace has bounced from team to team for a little while now, and Oluokun is still a work in progress. But no matter what you do here, you have to get rid of one of the two because they both are behind. They're both behind Deion Jones. Both of them are the same exact player behind Deion Jones, actually. So that's my setup. Jermaine Grace and Foye Oluokun are both going to be behind Deion Jones. Just is what it is. Just is what it is. So let's get on to the players that I add in free agency with the limited money that we have. And of course, I'm going to talk about a little bit of the offensive side. I'm not going to really deep dive it because there's a lot of things that have to move. There's a lot of moving parts on the offense. The offense is just going to have to get cheaper. So guys like I said, Alex Mack, Sanu, Freeman, you're probably going to have to go, I'm probably going to have to go. What would I do with Foye? I think I would keep Foye and let Grace walk. You're not getting anything out of him. Grace has restricted free agent tender that we have to sign him to just to be able to keep him. And then another team will still be able to come in and pay him more and take him away from us. So I think you're in a lose situation with Grace, and you can still work with Foye. So that's just my 2 cents. I think Deion Jones is the linebacker you want, and I think Oluokun can be the guy that you need. But I leave that up to y'all because I think both players are very, very good. Okay, so the players that I'm going to add in free agency are actually a couple that we already have on the team, just to re-sign them for depth purposes or for the purpose of making and filling out this defense in a 1-year work. Okay. So whether Dan Quinn is here or not, and I would love to get the LSU defensive coordinator to be our defensive coordinator here in Atlanta, but I would re-sign Tyler Davison. Look, I know a lot of people in here are going to be like, Tyler Davison hasn't made any sacks, but no, this guy has worked really, really hard. And that to me, I think is a good sign to bring him back and be our number 1 nose tackle with a couple more nose tackles. A couple more nose tackles that could come behind and play in rotation. I would, and this is just me, I would re-sign Vic Beasley because I know I can get him on the cheap. After this year, Vic Beasley's numbers are not going to be flashy, and he'll have made his $12.8 million. I think it's important to understand the realm and perspective versus just what you've seen and identify as not making a play. I think that Vic Beasley has made plays. There's definitely a couple of guys that have done some great work here, but have not been on the stat sheet. I like what Vic Beasley has done at his linebacker position. Tack, on the other hand, just doesn't seem to know what he's doing as a linebacker. That's going to take a whole nother year for him to develop and learn. So whether Dan Quinn is here or not, he's going to have to learn this. Because if we go back to a 43, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, but if we go back to a 43, everything's going to be all up in the air and shit's going to be all over the place. So that is what it is. I would re-sign Vic Beasley to a cheap deal. I know we could probably get him around $5 million a year. That to me could be a setup in the right direction. And you basically have him on a 3-year contract that acts like a 1. You're not keeping him around for very long because you're going to be drafting his replacement in the next 2 years. So that's my setup, is that you keep him on a 3-year contract that actually acts as a 1-year contract. There's nothing really guaranteed for Vic Beasley. If he signs that deal, cool. If he doesn't, then you can go and get another guy. I got another guy already set up. I would also go and re-sign John Cyprian, the safety that just got hurt and just got put on IR. Hey man, I do what I can to keep the defense together. It's not a great offseason and free agency. It's not pretty. No one's gonna like it, but it is what's going to make the team better. Jesus Christ, this chat is so toxic. I would also go out and get free agent outside linebacker Jordan Jenkins. I would sign him. That's a veteran. He knows exactly how to play in a 34. He'd bring that mentality and that swagger that you're looking for. He's a solid player who has done great work for his team. I think he's with Green Bay currently, or Philly. Maybe the Jets. I cannot remember. But he's done solid work for what he's done, and he would be a great addition to Atlanta for the short term. I would also then go and get 34 defensive end, 4-eye or nose tackle. You kind of call him both. But Derek Wolfe, I would go and grab him, another wily vet who knows what he's doing, would play very well next to Tyler Davison, would clog the middle, would stop those interior runs, would allow the Falcons to force things outside and force teams to pass so that you could put out really good corners and safeties and linebackers to cover. Okay, so that would be my only free agent acquisitions. We move on to the draft. In the first round, I select center Tyler Biadasz. And that's actually how you say his name, Biadasz. It's got an H, a silent H at the end. It's Beahdish. But you're going to say Biadasz. So I take Tyler Biadasz, the center from Wisconsin. He's a mauler. He's technical. He needs a little bit of polish, but he is an absolute star. Don't tell me that you wouldn't have more optimism when you say Jake Matthews, Jamon Brown or James Carpenter, whoever you keep, Alex Mack or Biadasz, Lindstrom and McGarry. And Lindstrom and McGarry have done very, very well. Lindstrom and McGarry have done very, very well. And Lindstrom has been hurt, but in that limited snap count that he has had, he looked like a star. He really did. And so I would go ahead and draft this guy in the first round. It would piss every Falcons fan off because they would be like, oh my God, no, we need more defense. Let's put Biadasz in there at left guard for 1 year, or even start him out at center. Let him go through his bumps and play a Lindstrom and McGarry, and we'll have a hell of a running game and great protection. But Biadasz, the center from Wisconsin, I drafted in the first round, will definitely be within his range. He won't be there in the second round. Nobody's gonna let him get to the second round. He'll get drafted in the first round. This guy is a stud. He'll probably be a Vach Lombardi badass for whatever it is. But man, such a great center, and honestly, the most solid pick because and here's my reasoning why. There is not an outside linebacker or defensive end outside of Chase Young. There is not an outside linebacker or defensive end or defensive tackle and I wouldn't waste my time with drafting a corner or a center or a linebacker in the first round. That the value's not there. The value is just not there. It's just not. It really isn't. If you actually go look at yourselves at all of these mock drafts and you go look at all of the players that are there and then correlate with their tape and their numbers currently, the talent is just not there. This is a very, very up in the air, weird, long-term thinking class. It's just not a solid class to be taking somebody in the first round from the defensive side of the ball. Just isn't. And offensively, there's really only a small grouping of players, and most of them are wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks, and offensive linemen. That this year I think is you have to go offensive line. You have to go offensive line this year. I think you draft Tyler or Taylor and you just walk away. Because it's honestly the best pick for you as an organization to continue to build a young, incredibly dangerous offensive line in front of Ryan, and then work in the pieces with your new DC/head coach, which is another reason why Mike McCarthy would be a really interesting head coach, because he likes the 34 defense and would probably go after a guy like Bob Sutton, who's already here, or the LSU defensive coordinator who's been running and actually the grandfather of this new scheme that we're seeing in LSU now and throughout college. Nick Saban runs a portion of it because of LSU. Clemson runs a portion of it because of LSU. Washington runs it because they have to take on the spread all the time because of all those West Coast teams. LSU's defensive coordinator, Andrada, I can't remember his name. He's the guy that is killing it right now and has really set the new trend. I mean, New England is running it right now. New England's running it right now. New England's always ahead of the trend. And they're the ones that are following a trend right now. So it's very interesting. I think that that's where you need to go. But anyway, round 2, I would take Curtis Weaver, outside linebacker, Boise State. I don't know if he's going to be there. When you're so early in the draft process, you don't know where guys are actually going to fall. But Curtis Weaver, outside linebacker, Boise State, go check him out. Rough, rugged, crazy good man-to-man outside linebacker, plays more like a defensive end than anything. But when you stand him up and you have him go after tackles or you have him stunt off of guards, he kicks ass. He kicks everybody's ass. I would love to take Curtis Weaver in the second round, and bolster the roster, because remember, this is still building out to do what New England is doing right now. Okay. But you put Curtis Weaver out there as the replacement to Vic Beasley. And again, I told you I had a plan for everything. Vic Beasley's on a 3-year contract that acts like a 1. Curtis Weaver just got drafted. Curtis Weaver only take a year or 2 to be able to get in there and work, and then Vic Beasley's probably gone. But if Vic continues to play well, you just keep him around on 2 to 3 year contracts and continue to put him back in over and over and over and over and over. Then I would go and draft in the 3rd round, and everybody's going to be like, wasted pick, but it is not. It's completely not. You have to get players like this that may not be on the stat sheet, but they just wreck. Leki Fotu, nose tackle out of Utah. Okay, let me explain why I'm going after Leki Fotu. The guy is a monster as a bull rusher and a monster in the run game. And he just eliminates inside runs. And this is what we're seeing with Taylor Davison, is that he's also that type of nose tackle that eliminates runs, contains things, keeps things short, and is able to beat up the pocket. When you have 2 nose tackles that can do that, and then you can start playing that 2-4-5 look, you can have these linebackers coming rushing. Vic Beasley, Curtis Weaver, Deion Jones, Tack McKinley, and so on and so forth. You can have them rushing, and you have to respect Taylor Davison and Leki, because they eat up people. They eat people up. Very interesting that Matt Tate says poor man version of Vita Vea. I like it. He's actually really good. So I would love to have him in the 3rd round. And this kind of correlates back to Deidre Sanat. This is what we were looking for in Deidre Sanat, and it just didn't happen. Oh, man. Good to see Lawrence Owen in the chat, my man. Rise up, stay grounded. I hope you're doing well. I'm sorry that I haven't been able to come to the chat and talk, but we're already, what is it? We're already 50 minutes in, so I just kind of want to get through the rest of this. In the 4th round, I would take Evan Weaver, a linebacker from Cal. A lot of people are saying he's a one-dimensional linebacker, maybe only a 2-down linebacker right now. That's what they said about Leighton Vander Esch, and this guy plays just like Leighton Vander Esch. There is some zone coverage that he doesn't do well, but man coverage he does decent, and also he's a very great run stopper and pass rusher. He would be my middle linebacker, and Deion would be pointing him in directions to go, because we need athletes that also have high IQ, and every one of these guys that I am drafting has high IQ. Beatus, Weaver, Fotu, and Evan Weaver all have high IQ, but they're all out there doing, I'm a point A to point B player. You tell me this is what we do, and that's where I need to be. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And if anything happens in that area, in the middle of point A and point B, I take care of it. That's my goddamn job. That would be the first 4 picks of my draft. And then my extra pick from the KZ trade would be Colby Parkinson, which I don't think he's going to be there. I think that people just love him out of Stanford, the tight end. He's kind of like Hooper light. If you were to kind of run him and he's kind of a straight line guy and slants and deep catches. So, and then in the 5th round, I take random safety. I have another 5th or 6th round pick from the Sanat trade, so I probably draft another corner, another safety. But those are all way unknown, because once you get into the late day 3 picks, you never know what's really going to happen. So of my first 4 picks, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of my first 4 picks? Beatis, the center from Wisconsin. Curtis Weaver, the outside linebacker from Boise State. Leaky Fotu, the nose tackle from Utah. Evan Weaver, the linebacker from Cal. And Colby Parkinson, the tight end from Stanford. That's how I would draft our first mock draft 1.0. That's how I would draft for the Falcons in 2020. And then, of course, your players added: Davison Bailey, Cyprian, Jordan Jenkins, Derek Wolfe. How does that translate to the roster? Well, that gives us 2 nose tackles currently. We could work on getting a 3rd in UDFA, or we could potentially go and draft one really, really late in the draft. That would give us 4 techs. So our 4 techs would be Grady Jarrett, Bailey, Kaminsky, Derek Wolfe. I didn't want to draft another 4I or 3 tech or 5 tech because I didn't want to step on Kaminsky's growth. So a lot of people in here will probably go, we need more defensive ends. I got you covered. Don't you worry your pretty head, because with those 4 right there, we could stop the run, we could attack the ball, we could attack the quarterback. Those 4 would be great. And I want Kaminsky to grow because I'm seeing good things out of him. Plus, you have Grady and Bailey, who are already established, and Derek Wolfe as a wily vet that can come in and kind of do a little bit of that nose tackle role, and also do a little bit of that 4I role. So kind of versatile player for the cheap, for the short term. And then as the linebackers, I'm actually carrying more linebackers than I am carrying nose tackles. So this is where I actually have an extra player there. Tack McKinley is your other 4I 5 tech, but he's also playing a 34 outside linebacker, so you'll probably see him rushing quite a bit. But your other 34 outside linebackers are Vic Beasley, Curtis Weaver, and Jordan Jenkins. Your middle linebackers are Deion Jones, who would be your kind of roaming coverage linebacker, and then Evan Weaver would be your 34 middle linebacker to stop the run. And then you either get the choice of Jermaine Grace or Foye Oluokun to be your last backup linebacker, to kind of only back up really Deion Jones. Although I think if you had Foye, he could potentially be a better backup to Evan Weaver if you're looking for more coverage stuff. And he is a good run defender for what it's worth currently. The new coaching staff, or old coaching staff with new positional guys and a new defensive coordinator, could probably make this better. Continuing on, I give Keanu Neal his last year, and I hope he doesn't get injured in 2020. And I play him, and I wish him the best. If he does well, then I re-sign him because he's on his 5th year contract. And if he doesn't do well, then we move on. There's nothing that we can do about that. Cyprian would also be re-signed, currently on IR. Don't know how you feel about that. You guys tell me what you think, but Cyprian would be my next choice. Maybe go get another strong safety from UDFA or later in the draft. Ricardo Allen would still be here, although he could be potentially a cut candidate. Numbers dictate right now that he would probably be better cut than he would be continuing with the team. But Ricardo Allen has called out the fans, the players, the coaches, everything in between, and has tried to keep things 100% and real. And that's why I love Ricardo Allen. But he just doesn't work for the system that we're looking for currently. And then I would probably go and get a drafted or UDFA free safety, maybe even a vet for really cheap. Then your corners are going to be Oliver, Trufant, Miller, Sheffield, and someone drafted. But Trufant could potentially be cut next year for quite a bit of money, even though you'd get a dead money in it as well. And you could go and grab yourself another corner if you so desired. That would mean that we would actually now average exactly what New England is averaging on their height and weight. Middle linebackers to outside linebackers total currently, the highest weight 260 pounds, the average weight is 253, and the lowest weight is 238. So they actually have one, two, three, four, five linebackers that are currently 255 or above. Nose tackle weight is averaging 313 pounds. 315 pounds, excuse me. Their lowest is 300. Their highest is 345. So it looks like the weight for nose tackles is now going up in the NFL. That is a trend. I would buy high into guys that have athletic profiles that have ridiculous weights, like, I don't know, Dexter Lawrence or Vita Vea. Those type of guys you're probably going to find in this draft class, and you could potentially get a couple of them. I got a Leaky in this draft, so there's potentially somebody there that you could bring in. But we would be averaging somewhere around 315 pounds currently if we were to add Leaky and Davison back. Defensive ends, they only carry 4 defensive ends, and these defensive ends, again, are 4 eyes. They are not 5 techs, so they're not rushing off the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. They're actually rushing off the inside shoulder of the offensive tackle. So they are kind of giving a disadvantage to the tackle who has to turn inside and be able to stop them. And they're also in prime position to come after the guard, which is the reason why colleges are now doing that, because a lot of inside runs get taken away that way. And they can also transfer with that tackle and move the running back to make him arc out and run further. And a lot of times that sends the running back right out of bounds with no gain, which is happening to the Falcons a lot. But their average weight is 275 pounds. Their highest weight actually is 315 pounds. They have a 315 pound defensive end that plays 4-eye. Think about that. They have a 315 pound guy who is playing 4-eye. So they actually have 4 nose tackles on their team. They actually have 4 nose tackles on their team, and they use them, all of them. Okay. Their lowest weight is 250 pounds. That's actually Chase Winovich, who's actually playing that position. Very interesting, very weird, very odd. And then also, yeah, their average is 275 pounds. On that list. And then their corners and their safeties. I just wanted to go on height alone. I didn't want to go on weight, but their highest corner is just recently drafted, 6'3". Their average height and weight for a corner is 6 foot 200. That's where they're sitting right now. Is 6 foot 200. Their lowest height is 5'10", and they're carrying 5 corners. Then on top of that, their safeties are actually, the highest safety is 6'1", the lowest safety is 5'10". Their average safety height is 5'11". So that's kind of where they're sitting right now. But a couple of guys that I'm currently looking at right now: Jacob Phillips, linebacker from LSU; Evan Weaver, linebacker from Cal; and Ventrell Miller, who's actually, I believe, a junior linebacker from Florida. All guys that I'm currently looking at potentially, can move some of those things around. But please go check out Brett Kollmann's latest video. It's on the Falcons. It's on their scheme. It's on all of the problems that we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, maybe even 2 months now, maybe over the last 2 years now. But please go check his video out. I actually posted it here on Unintentional Grounding. Link is already there in my videos for my community tab. So you'll see it in your followed videos. I really got to give a clap to Brett Kollmann. I really do. He really put out a hell of a video, and really gave us a great understanding of what the problems are and the regression of all of our defensive players, as well as just the hypocrisy. That Dan Quinn said that there was changes coming, and the changes never came. So, yeah, man, crazy stuff. But my name's Lieutenant Dan. This is Unintentional Grounding Live. I'm going to be going from here to twitch.tv/unintentional grounding. Link is in the description of the video. to go talk to you guys a little bit more and play some video games, because this was actually the second highest rated thing. I'm not going to do a Matt Ryan interception video. I don't think that's going to give any. It's not going to give us. It's not going to give us anything more. You know, like, it's just going to add more to the negativity, and I don't need to add more to the negativity. I think it's really sad. Also, I really want to give a big shout out to Devontae Hughes, who is now a new member of the Grounders. He's been writing quite a few blogs and all kinds of great stuff for the Falcons as a whole. And he is now going to be the lead writer, along with the real Patman, who's also going to be putting out statistical data and so on and so forth. So big shout out to them, and thank you for joining the Grounders. I hope that it works out for you. But that being said, rise up, stay grounded, take it easy, guys. I'll see you guys on Twitch in just a little while. And I hope that you guys enjoy this video on just kind of a path to the draft, the first path to the draft, and the first path to greatness. What could continue to set us back, though, before I leave, is hiring Lincoln Riley, or hiring, New England's offensive coordinator, or treading the same path that we continue to tread. If we do that, this team is going to continue to burn like an airplane out of the sky, and continue to skydive until it hits the ground, and then things are going to get worse. At the end of the Brett Kollmann video, it actually gave me a sense of dread, because he goes, if major changes aren't made over the next couple of weeks, or maybe even over the next year, then even bigger changes are going to happen. And it ended with a video of Matt Ryan on the sideline, and I would hate to see Matt Ryan retire or get traded or leave this organization with unfinished business as a player that's still doing very, very well. And it would be really depressing. It would be really depressing to see Matt Ryan leave this organization because he's sick and tired of the coaching, and he's sick and tired of the way that the players are acting. Only for us to then have to take an even bigger step back and draft a quarterback. I know that's exciting. I know that would be a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it would really put us in a bad position. And I think a lot of people are pointing to Ryan for the major issues, and it isn't Ryan. It's the team as a whole not doing well, not playing as a cohesive unit, and the communication is poor. So please go check out that Brett Kollmann video. It's on his site as well as on YouTube, and also I already put it through. But rise up, stay grounded, take it easy. I'll see you guys on Twitch in just a little bit, and I hope that you guys have a good one, and peace and hair grease. You're listening to nothing but the facts and the truth from your boy Lieutenant Dan here, Unintentional Grounding. I hope you enjoyed the content. I hope to see you again real soon. Peace.